The twin suns of Zora shone brightly over the crystal towers of the capital city. The air was warm, and the sky glowed with soft shades of gold and pink. The city was alive with excitement. Merchants shouted from their colorful stalls, musicians played strange but beautiful tunes, and banners of silver and blue waved in the gentle breeze. Today was not an ordinary day. Today was the day the great announcement would be made, the beginning of the royal tournament. High above the city, in the grand palace of glass and stone, Princess Nara stood on the balcony. She was loved by her people, not only for her beauty, but for her wisdom and kindness. Her father, King Arian, had ruled Zora for many decades. But now, the people wondered who would stand beside the princess as her partner in ruling the kingdom. For centuries, the tradition was clear. When the time came, a grand tournament would be held. The winner would earn the princess's heart, if she accepted, and also become the protector of Zora. The tournament was open to warriors from all known worlds in the galaxy. The royal announcer stepped forward and spoke to the massive crowd gathered in the central square. By the will of King Arian and Princess Nara, the royal tournament begins. All brave warriors may enter. The prize is not only the princess's heart, but the honor of standing as Zora's champion. The crowd roared with excitement. Far away from the palace, at the edge of the city, a human stood quietly among the people. His name was Jax. He wore simple armor made from old metal plates and carried a staff on his back. Jax had traveled a long way from Earth, a planet many in the galaxy still thought of as weak and undeveloped. When Jax heard the announcer's words, he looked up. He had not come to Zora for riches or glory. He had come for a challenge. He had heard stories of the princess's kindness and the fairness of her people. He wanted to prove that humans, though new to the galaxy, could be strong, clever, and worthy of respect. The line to register for the tournament stretched across the square. Giant warriors with 4 arms stood beside thin, fast alien fighters. With glowing eyes, some had skin like metal, others had wings of light. Jax looked small among them, but he did not step back. When his turn came, a guard looked at him with doubt. "Name?" the guard asked. "Jax." He replied simply, "Planet Earth." The guard raised an eyebrow. "Earth? I've never heard of a fighter from there winning anything." Jax only smiled. "Then maybe it's time you see one." The guard gave him a small card with his number. "Good luck, human. You need it." Later that evening, the warriors were gathered in the Hall of Stars, the place where the opening ceremony would take place. The hall was enormous, with a ceiling so high it seemed to touch the clouds. Holographic images of past champions shone. Along the walls, some looked fierce and terrifying, others calm and noble. The princess entered, followed by her royal guard. She wore a silver gown that caught the light like water. Her presence was quiet yet strong. As she passed each warrior, she greeted them with a nod. When she reached Jax, she paused for a moment, her eyes studying him. "You're human?" she asked softly. "Yes, princess," Jax said, bowing slightly. "Few humans have come here for the tournament. Then perhaps it is time for that to change." Her lips curved into the faintest smile before she moved on. That night, Jax stayed in the simple quarters given to all contestants. He lay on the small bed, staring at the glowing ceiling. His mind was not on the prize of the princess's hand, though she was indeed someone to admire. His thoughts were on the challenge itself. He remembered his training back on Earth. The years of learning combat not only with weapons, but with the mind. His teacher had told him once, "The greatest weapon is not your blade, but your ability to think when all others only strike." Jax knew that brute strength would not be enough here. Some of his opponents could crush steel with their bare hands, but strength was not everything. He would need to be quick, clever, and ready to surprise them. The next morning, the first stage of the tournament began. The arena was unlike anything Jax had seen before. It was a vast circle, the floor made of shifting tiles that could rise, fall, or spin without warning. Above, the crowd filled every seat, their cheers echoing like thunder. The announcer's voice boomed, "Welcome, champions from across the stars. Today, you fight not only for honor, but for the right to stand before Princess Nara herself. Let the first round begin. Jax was matched against a tall, scaled warrior named Varric. Varric's eyes glowed yellow, and his spear was tipped with a blade of pure energy. The crowd clearly expected Varric to win. He had fought here before, and was known for ending battles in seconds. The signal was given. Varric charged forward, his spear spinning. Jax stepped aside at the last second, letting Varric's weapon strike only empty air. Varric turned quickly, but Jax kept moving, never staying in the same place for more than a moment. The arena floor shifted under them, one tile dropping suddenly. Varric stumbled for just a second, and Jax used the moment to strike the side of his opponent's weapon with his staff, forcing it to the ground. The crowd gasped. No one had ever disarmed Varric so quickly. Varric roared and swung a heavy punch, but Jax ducked, swept his leg, and sent the warrior crashing to the floor. The match was over. Jax offered his hand to help Varric up. At first, Varric stared at him in shock, then accepted. The crowd cheered loudly now, not just for the victory, but for the respect Jax had shown his opponent. From the royal box above, Princess Nara leaned forward, watching him closely. This human had not come with boasts or arrogance, yet he had defeated a known champion with skill and calm. King Arian spoke beside her. Interesting. Perhaps this earth warrior is not to be underestimated. The princess only nodded, her eyes never leaving the man in the arena. Something told her this tournament was about to be far more interesting than anyone expected. And so, the first day ended. Jax returned to his quarters, silent but steady, while whispers of the human warrior spread through the city. Some laughed and said his luck would not last. Others began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, he could win it all. Far above, in the highest tower of the palace, Princess Nara stood by her window, looking out at the city lights. She didn't yet know why, but she felt this human story was only just beginning. The next day on Zora began with the bright twin suns rising over the crystal towers, casting golden light across the capital. The streets buzzed with talk of the human warrior who had surprised everyone in the first round. Some thought his victory was only luck. Others whispered that perhaps humans had more strength than anyone had believed. In his small quarters, Jax sat quietly, repairing the grip on his staff. He had slept little. His mind was focused on what lay ahead. Today, the second stage of the tournament would begin. The matches would be faster, harder, and more dangerous. The arena changed when Jax entered the arena. He noticed it was different from yesterday. The floor was now covered in shifting platforms floating above glowing water. The platforms moved at different speeds, some rising, some sinking, some spinning slowly. If a fighter fell into the water, the match would be lost. The crowd filled every seat, their cheers echoing across the vast space. High above, Princess Nara and King Arian watched from their royal balcony. The announcer's voice boomed. Welcome to the second stage. Today, the trials will test not just strength, but speed, balance, and skill. Fighters must stay on the platforms and defeat their opponents without falling into the water. Let the battles begin. Match 1. The swift opponent. Jax first. Opponent was a thin, sharp-eyed alien named Kiro. His skin shimmered like polished bronze, and his arms ended in long, claw-like fingers. He moved like lightning, jumping from one platform to another as if the shifting ground did not bother him at all. When the signal was given, Kiro attacked immediately, darting forward with incredible speed. His claws slashed through the air, forcing Jax to move quickly. Jax blocked with his staff, feeling the force of each blow. Kiro tried to circle behind him, but Jax remembered his training. Never follow an opponent's pace. Set your own. He stepped back to the edge of a platform, letting Kiro believe he was cornered. At the last moment, Jax dropped low, sweeping his staff at Kiro's legs. The alien slipped and nearly fell into the water, catching himself on the platform's edge. Before Kiro could recover, Jax used the staff to push him just enough for gravity to take over. The splash was loud, and the crowd roared. Jax offered Kiro a respectful nod before leaving the platform. Match 2. The heavy striker. His next opponent was the complete opposite, a massive, armored fighter named Drogon. His body was covered in thick plates, and he carried a hammer almost as large as Jax himself. The platforms groaned under Drogon's weight as he stepped forward. When the match began, Drogon swung his hammer with terrifying power. Each strike made the platform shake. Jax knew he could not block such force head-on. Instead, he moved constantly. Leaping from one platform to another, Drogon grew frustrated and charged after him, the heavy hammer slowing his turns. Jax waited for the right moment, a spinning platform near the arena's edge. When Drogon stepped onto it, his balance wavered. Jax struck the side of the hammer, making Drogon stumble further. One more quick push with the staff, and the giant lost his footing, falling into the glowing water below. The crowd shouted louder than before. The human had now defeated two completely different types of opponents. Between matches back in the rest area, some of the other fighters glanced at Jax with new respect, though a few still looked at him with doubt. A small alien with big round eyes and short fur approached him. "You fight well, human," the creature said in a high, friendly voice. "Thank you," Jax replied. "And you are?" "Myko. I am not a fighter in this tournament. I help with the arena machines." But I watched closely. Myko's eyes shifted left and right, making sure no one else was listening. "Be careful," Myko whispered. "Not everyone here fights for honor. Some have other plans." Before Jax could ask what that meant, Myko hurried away. The princesses interstepped in the royal balcony. Princess Nara leaned toward her father. "The human fights differently," she said. "He does not rely on brute strength, yet he wins against stronger and faster opponents." King Arion nodded slowly. "Yes, he studies his enemy before striking. That is rare in these games." The princess's gaze followed Jax as he left the platform. She felt there was something about him, a calmness in the middle of chaos. Match 3. The trickster Jax's final match of the day was against a fighter named Loran. Loran was not as large as Drogon or as fast as Kiro, but his eyes gleamed with cunning. He carried the short blades that seemed to hum with faint energy. The match began on platforms that moved unpredictably, some tilting without warning. Loran attacked with sharp, quick strikes, but his main weapon was deception. He pretended to stumble, then struck suddenly when Jax moved closer. Jax realized he could not predict Loran's next move, but he could control the field. He began to shift his position toward platforms near the water's edge, forcing Loran to follow. When a platform tilted under them, Jax used the moment to tap Loran's arm, making him drop one blade. Loran tried to lunge forward, but his footing slipped, and Jax pushed just enough to send him over. The water splashed again. The crowd cheered. Jax had won all his matches for the day. The whisper of danger as the day ended. The fighters returned to their quarters. Jax passed Myko again in the corridor. The little alien looked serious now. "I saw something today," Myko said quietly. "Some fighters speak with strangers in the shadows. They are not here for the princess's hand. They want something else, something dangerous." "What?" Jax asked. "I don't know yet, but if they win, it will not be good for Zora." Jax nodded. "Then I will keep my eyes open." He returned to his room, sitting by the window. The night sky of Zora glittered with stars and distant ships passing between them. The tournament was only beginning, but already he sensed that winning the princess's heart might not be the only challenge ahead. Somewhere in the city, hidden in the dark, others were moving their own pieces in a game far bigger than the one in the arena. And so the second day ended. The crowd now spoke the human's name with curiosity and growing respect. But for Jax, the real battle was still ahead. The third day of the tournament began with a cool breeze sweeping across the capital. Banners waved high above the streets, and the sound of drums echoed from the arena. The people of Zora were excited. The matches today would narrow the number of fighters even further. But while the city celebrated, Jax's mind was not fully on the fights. Myko's warning from the day before still echoed in his head. Not everyone here fights for honor. Early morning tension before the matches began. Jax walked the quiet corridors of the fighters' quarters. He noticed the warriors speaking in hushed voices near a side door. Loran, the trickster he had defeated yesterday, and a tall figure wrapped in a dark cloak. Jax stopped behind a corner, listening. The plan is almost ready, the cloaked figure whispered. And the guards? Lauren asked. They will not matter when the signal comes. Make sure you lose your match today. We need you free when the real fight begins. Jax frowned. The words were short, but their meaning was clear. Someone was using the tournament as cover for another mission. Before he could hear more, to glance around, Jax stepped back quickly, blending into a group of other warriors passing through the hall. The arena of Flemeth's first match of the day took place in a new arena setup, a ring of platforms surrounded by bursts of controlled flame. The heat shimmered in the air, making it hard to see clearly. Jax's opponent was a tall, silver-skinned fighter named Vereen. He carried no weapon, relying instead on his long, powerful limbs. The match began, and Vereen attacked with sharp, sweeping kicks. Jax dodged the first two, but the third came close enough to knock him sideways. The heat from the flames added to the challenge, making every movement exhausting. Jax shifted his tactics. Instead of trying to overpower Vereen, he began moving in smaller, quicker steps, forcing his opponent to keep turning. After several exchanges, Vereen's breathing grew heavier. Jax waited for the next kick, then ducked under it, striking the back of Vereen's leg with his staff. Vereen stumbled forward, nearly into the flames, but caught himself. Still, the pause was enough for Jax to push him out of the ring. The crowd cheered loudly as the announcer declared Jax the winner. A quiet conversation during the break between matches. Jax spotted Maiko again, standing in the shadows near the maintenance door. I followed them, Maiko said quietly when Jax approached, and they are working for someone outside Zora. I think they want to capture the princess during the final ceremony, but I still don't know how. Jax looked toward the royal balcony, where Princess Nara sat speaking to her father. Her face was calm, unaware of the danger. We need proof, Jax said. I will keep watching. Maiko replied, you keep fighting. If you lose now, you won't be close enough to help later. Jax nodded. The tournament was no longer just about proving himself. Now it was about protecting the princess and the people of Zora. Match 2. The Shadow Fighter, his next opponent, was unlike any he had faced before. This warrior wore black armor that covered everything except glowing red eyes. The announcer called him Shade. When the match began, Shade didn't charge forward like the others. He simply stood still, waiting. Jax circled, searching for an opening, but Shade moved only when necessary, blocking every strike with silent precision. The fight turned into a game of patience. The crowd grew restless as minutes passed with little action, but Jax understood. Rushing in would only play into Shade's control. Finally, Jax spotted a tiny gap in Shade's defense when the black-armored fighter shifted his weight. Jax struck low, forcing Shade to step back onto a tilting platform. In that instant, the armor's heavy weight made him lose balance, and he stumbled out of the ring. The crowd erupted again, but Shade simply nodded to Jax before leaving. It was a sign of respect between warriors. Trouble in the shadows after the second win. Jax slipped away from the main hall. He wanted to see where Lauren had gone after losing his match earlier that day. Following a narrow passage behind the arena, Jax found Lauren speaking with the same cloaked figure again. This time, there were more, at least 5 armed individuals, all wearing dark insignias that Jax didn't recognize. When the final bell rings, the cloaked leader said, "The guards will be distracted. Strike quickly and take her too. The transport, no mistakes." Jax knew exactly who her meant, Princess Nara. Before he could step closer, the floor panel under his boot creaked. Lauren's head turned sharply. Someone's listening. He shouted. Jax sprinted away, weaving through the maze of carters until he rejoined the main path. No one followed, but he knew they would now be more careful. The princess's gaze later. As the day's final matches ended, Jax stood among the remaining warriors. The number had dropped from dozens to only 12. Princess Nara rose from her seat and addressed the crowd. "To all who have fought with honor, I thank you. Tomorrow, the trials grow harder. But remember, this is not only a contest of strength, but of heart. Her gaze swept over the warriors, and for a brief moment, her eyes met Jax's. There was a question in them, as if she sensed something was troubling him. Jax gave the slightest nod, silently promising he would speak to her soon. Night preparation chat. Evening, Jax met Maiko again in his quarters. He told the small alien everything he had heard. They will act during the final ceremony, Jax said. Then we must be ready before that, Maiko replied. I can find a way into the control systems for the arena. If they try anything, we can stop them. Jax tightened the straps on his armor. Good, but we can't let them know we're aware of their plan. For now, I'll keep fighting as if nothing's wrong. Looking ahead as night settled over Zora, the city lights sparkled like stars. The streets grew quieter, but in hidden places, dark plans were being prepared. Jax sat by the window, watching the glow of the palace in the distance. He thought about the matches still ahead, and about the danger closing in on Princess Nara. The tournament was proving to be more than a test of skill. It was becoming a battle for the safety of an entire world. Jax knew one thing for certain. When the time came, he would be ready. The fourth day of the tournament began with heavy clouds covering the twin suns. A light wind swept across the capital, carrying with it the sound of distant drums and the smell of fresh market food. But inside the arena, the air felt tense. Only 8 fighters remained. Every battle now would be harder, and every mistake would be punished. Jax stood in the preparation area, tightening the grip on his staff. His mind was calm, but his thoughts kept returning to the conversation he had overheard, the plan to capture Princess Nara. Maiko had promised to gather more information. But for now, Jax's task was simple: keep advancing in the tournament so he would be close to the princess. When the danger came, the dishonorable warrior's first match of the day was against a fighter named Ral. Ral was tall and broad, with jagged armor, and a grin that never reached his eyes. He was known across Zora for winning matches through tricks, not skill. Some said he used hidden weapons. Others said he paid off officials to look the other way. When Ral entered the arena, the crowds' cheers were mixed with shouts of disapproval. Many didn't trust him, but he had survived this far, which meant he was dangerous. The arena for this match was a wide, flat surface surrounded by energy walls. No shifting floors, no traps, just open space for a direct fight. The announcer's voice rang out, "Let the match begin." Fighting Dirtle moved quickly, swinging his heavy sword in broad arcs. Jax blocked each strike with his staff, the sound of metal hitting wood echoing across the arena. Then, without warning, Ral kicked sand from the arena floor toward Jax's face. It was a cheap move, but effective. The grit stung Jax's eyes. Ral charged, slamming into him with his shoulder. Jax rolled to the side, avoiding the follow-up strike. The crowd booed at Ral's tactic, but the fighter only laughed. Jax blinked the sand from his eyes and steadied his stance. He had fought people like Ral before, people who believed winning was worth any dishonor. Turning, the fighter swung his sword again, aiming for Jax's shoulder. Jax stepped inside the swing, striking the flat of the blade with his staff. The impact jarred Ral's grip, but the larger man still held on. The two circled each other. Ral tried another trick, pretending to trip, then lunging forward when Jax approached. But Jax didn't fall for it. He stayed back, forcing Ral to make the first real move. When Ral finally attacked infiltration, Jax saw his chance. He shifted to the side, hooked the end of his staff around Ral's ankle, and swept his legs out from under him. Ral hit the ground hard, his sword sliding away. The crowd erupted in cheers. Showing respect, Ral glared up at Jax, expecting a final blow. Instead, Jax stepped back and lowered his staff. "Stand and fight with honor," Jax said firmly. Ral hesitated, then slowly got to his feet. For a moment, his eyes flickered with something almost like shame. But when the match resumed, Jax quickly disarmed him again, ending it for good. The announcer declared Jax the winner. Some of the crowd chanted his name. Others simply looked relieved that Ral's tricks had finally failed. Up in the royal balcony, Princess Nara leaned toward her father. He had the chance to humiliate his opponent, but he didn't. She said. King Arian nodded. a fighter with both skill and restraint. That is rare. Maiko's warning back in the preparation area. Jax found Maiko waiting in the shadows. The little alien's ears twitched nervously. I heard more, Maiko whispered. They plan to act during the final match of the tournament. The leader in the cloak. He's not from this system. He's from the outer worlds. The kind who take what they want by force. And Loran, Jax asked, still with them. He moves freely around the arena because he's pretending to be injured. No one suspects him. Jax frowned. Then we have to make sure the princess is ready. Maiko shook his head. If we warn her now, the enemies may change their plan. We need to catch them in the act. The second match, Jax's second match that day, was against a warrior named Senna. Quick, agile, and armed with twin curved blades. Unlike Raoul, Senna fought with honor. Bowing before the match began. The arena, this time, was a maze of tall walls and narrow paths. It was a place where speed and awareness mattered more than strength. Senna moved like flowing water, striking from unexpected angles. Jax blocked and countered, but the fight was fast and exhausting. Eventually, Jax used the maze itself to win. He lured Senna into a narrow corner, where her blades could not swing freely, and disarmed her with a single upward strike of his staff. The match ended with both fighters bowing to each other, a display of mutual respect that the crowd loved. Evening. Thoughts when the matches ended for the day, only 4 fighters remained. Jax was one of them. The final battles would take place tomorrow. That night, Jax stood on a balcony outside his quarters, looking at the palace in the distance. He could see the glow of lights in the princess's chambers. He wondered if she had any idea of the danger so close to her. Maiko appeared beside him, carrying a small datapad. I've been watching the arena's systems, Maiko said. If they try to shut down the energy walls during the final match, I can block it. But we'll still need someone close to protect the princess directly. Jax nodded. That will be me. The princess's reflection. Meanwhile, inside the palace, Princess Nara sat in her study, speaking quietly with her father. This human, Jax, she said, he is different from the others. He fights with skill, but also with patience and honor. Perhaps that is why the people cheer for him. King Arian replied, strength wins battles, honor wins trust. The princess looked out at the city lights. For some reason, she felt safer knowing Jax was still in the tournament. The calm before the storm as night deepened over Zora. The capital seemed peaceful. But in hidden rooms beneath the city, the cloaked leader and his allies sharpened their weapons and reviewed their plan. The tournament had brought all eyes to the arena. Tomorrow, they would use that attention to mask their true goal. Jax did not know every detail of what they planned, but he knew enough. Tomorrow, the battles would not be only for the princess's heart, they would be for her life. And he was ready to fight for both. The morning air of the royal city was tense, even though the tournament had paused for the day. The streets still buzzed with whispers about Rion, the human warrior who had shocked the galaxy. Vendors spoke of his unmatched courage. Travelers told tales of his victories, and in hidden corners, some spoke of him as a threat. Rion walked through the crowded market with slow steps. He wore a simple cloak over his training armor, trying not to attract too much attention. But no matter where he went, eyes followed him. Some were curious, some admiring, but others suspicious. Near a fruit stall, a small boy ran up to him. Sir Rion, my father says you will win for sure, the boy said with wide eyes. Rion smiled, gently patting the boy's head. Winning is not as important as fighting with honor, he replied. The boy grinned and ran back to his family. But just as Rion turned to leave, a cloaked figure brushed past him, slipping a folded piece of metal into his hand. Before Rion could speak, the stranger vanished into the crowd. He unfolded it quickly. The message was carved in small letters. They will try to end you before the final match. Trust no one inside the palace. Rion's eyes narrowed. This was no idle warning. He remembered the way some alien warriors had looked at him yesterday, more like predators than competitors. Someone didn't just want him to lose. They wanted him gone. Meanwhile, inside the palace gardens, Princess Alira sat under a silver leaf tree. Her personal guard, Captain Maron, stood nearby. You've been restless, Princess, Miron said. I have reason to be, Alira replied. There is more at stake than a title. Rion is different. His victories are not only strength, they carry meaning. Miron hesitated. Do you care for him? Alira's gaze was firm. I respect him, and I will not let dishonor touch this tournament. She didn't know that spies were already moving through the palace halls. Two members of the High Council, both from powerful alien houses, were meeting in secret. The human must be removed, one hissed, if he wins. The balance of our alliances will break. We cannot kill him openly, the other whispered. But accidents happened in the arena. That evening, Rion returned to the training grounds. He found his friend and fellow competitor, a tall reptilian warrior named Korn, sharpening his blade. You look troubled, human, Korn said. I've been warned. Someone plans to stop me. Before the finals, Korn's yellow eyes narrowed. Then you must not walk alone. I will stand with you. They trained late into the night, practicing counters and defense against ambushes. Rion noticed something strange. Some of the arena staff avoided looking at him, while others gave him brief nods as if they knew something but were afraid to speak. The next day was the semi-final match. The great arena roared with the cheers of thousands as Rion stepped onto the shimmering sand. His opponent was a massive warrior from the desert worlds, armored in plates of obsidian. From the start, the fight was fierce. The alien strikes were heavy, shaking Rion's arms with every block. But Rion's speed and precision kept him alive. As they clashed, he noticed something. The floor tiles near his corner were slightly raised, almost loose. Suddenly, when Rion stepped back, one of the tiles gave way. A hidden spike shot upward, barely missing his leg. Gasps rose from the crowd. That was no accident, Rion thought. Fueled by anger, he launched a counterattack, knocking his opponent's weapon aside and pressing the tip of his blade to the alien's chest. The match was over. The referee hesitated for a second, as if unsure, but then raised Rion's hand. The crowd roared, but Rion's eyes scanned the royal box. He saw Princess Alira rise to her feet, her face pale. She had seen it to the trap. In the arena, that night, in a quiet corner of the palace gardens, Alira met Rion in secret. You were not imagining it, she said quickly. Someone is trying to make you fall literally. I need to know who, Rion said, his voice low. Alira's gaze was troubled. If I dig too deep, I will make enemies among the council. But I think I can find the truth. I can protect myself, Rion said. But you must be careful. They will not stop at me. From the shadows, unseen by both, a masked figure listened to every word before disappearing into the night. As Rion returned to his quarters, he felt the weight of the coming final match. It was no longer only about winning the princess's hand. It was about surviving forces far greater than the arena itself. And in the dark corridors of the palace, plans were already being made. The final battle would not be fought on fair ground. It would be a war between honor and treachery. The great hall of the alien palace was filled with noise. The crowd of many species waited for the next stage of the tournament. The rules were clear. Only two warriors remained, and the final challenge would decide who would win the princess's heart. Ronan stood alone in a small chamber before the main arena. His armor had scratches. His blade had lost some of its shine, but his eyes were full of determination. He had faced warriors twice his size, creatures with strange powers, and fighters trained since birth. Still, he stood unbeaten. But now his last opponent was unlike any he had faced before. His name was Varnick, a giant from the world of Gruther, known for incredible strength and a skin like stone. Varnick had won all his matches with ease, throwing his opponents aside as if they were made of paper. The crowd respected him, but they also feared him. Ronan knew that brute force alone would not win this fight. As he stood waiting, Princess Alara's voice echoed in his mind. She had spoken to him after the previous round, her tone soft but filled with warning. Courage is not enough, Ronan. You must be clever. Varnick's strength is his pride. Use it against him. The gates to the arena opened. Bright light spilled into the chamber, and the roar of the crowd hit Ronan like a wave. He stepped forward, feeling the sand of the fighting ground beneath his boots. Across the arena, Varnik entered, his massive frame casting a shadow that seemed to stretch forever. The announcer's voice rose high, speaking in several languages at once so all could understand. The final challenge: no weapons, no armor. The warrior must win with only skill and will. The crowd gasped. Ronan felt a weight in his chest. No sword, no shield, just him against a mountain of muscle. He removed his armor slowly, folding it neatly on the side. Varnik simply grunted and tossed aside his weapon. Standing bare-chested and confident, the match began with a loud gong. Varnik charged forward like a storm. Ronan dodged, rolling to the side. Sand flew in the air as Varnik's foot struck the ground where Ronan had stood a second ago. The human kept moving, refusing to meet the giant's strength head-on. "You run like a child." Varnik laughed, his deep voice echoing in the arena. Ronan didn't answer. He studied every movement, the heavy steps, the slow turn of the giant's shoulders, the way he lost speed after every attack. This was not a battle of strength. It was a battle of patience. The first few minutes felt endless. Varnik tried to grab Ronan several times, but the human always slipped away. Sweat dripped down Ronan's forehead, but he kept his breathing steady. The crowd grew restless. Some shouted for action. Others began to notice the human's strategy. Finally, Ronan saw his chance. Varnik lunged again. But this time Ronan ran toward one of the tall stone pillars that surrounded the arena. As Varnik followed, Ronan spun round the pillar, using it as a shield. The giant tried to swing his arm, but it struck the stone instead. A crack formed in the pillar, and Varnik roared in pain. Ronan darted behind another pillar. Again, Varnik struck, and again his own strength hurt him. Bit by bit, the giant's movement slowed, his breathing becoming heavy. "You think you can tire me out, little man?" Varnik growled. "I don't think," Ronan replied calmly. "I know." The fight turned into a dance of speed versus power. Every time Varnik attacked, Ronan used the pillars, the sand, and the giant's size against him. The human stayed just out of reach, forcing Varnik to waste his energy. At last, Varnik's steps became sluggish. His shoulders dropped. His skin, once looking like stone, was now covered in dust and sweat. Ronan knew the moment had come. He feinted left, and Varnik followed. But Ronan suddenly darted right, slipping behind the giant. With one quick movement, he leaped onto Varnik's back, locking his arm around the giant's neck. Varnik struggled, roaring in anger, but his strength was almost gone. Ronan held on tight, his arms burning, his vision blurring. Then, with a final heave, Varnik fell forward onto the sand. The gong sounded. The arena went silent for a heartbeat, then erupted. In cheers. The announcer's voice boomed. "Ronan of Earth has won." Ronan stood, breathing hard, his body aching. Varnik slowly sat up, looking at the human with something unexpected: respect. He extended his hand. Ronan took it without hesitation. "You are not the strongest," Varnik said, "but you are the smartest. I will remember this." As Ronan left the arena, Princess Alara was waiting. She smiled, her eyes bright with both pride and relief. "You did it," she said softly. "One step remains," Ronan replied. He knew the tournament was almost over, but the final stage was still ahead. And that last stage, he sensed, would be the hardest of all. The crowd's cheers followed him as he walked toward the royal hall. Somewhere deep inside, he could feel the weight of history. This was more than just a competition. It was the story of a human proving himself before the entire galaxy. And soon, the galaxy would see the end of that story. The great hall of the royal palace was filled with voices. Lords, nobles, and warriors from different worlds sat in the long rows, waiting for the final announcement. The tournament was over. Every challenge had been faced. Every trial had been passed. Now, it was time for the king and the princess to decide. Ren stood in the center of the hall. His armor was scratched from the last battle, and his right arm was wrapped in cloth. Even with his wounds, he stood tall, his eyes steady. The alien champion stood near him, some still proud, others silent with defeat. The king rose from his throne. His voice carried through the hall. "Warriors, you have shown strength, courage, and honor. The tournament for the heart of my daughter has reached its end, but this choice is not mine alone. The final word belongs to the princess." All eyes turned to Princess Leora. She stepped forward, her silver dress flowing behind her. Her eyes met Rin's for a moment before she looked across the hall. "You all came to prove your worth," she began softly, but her voice grew stronger. "And you did. But worth is not only in strength. Worth is in the heart, in the way one treats others, in the way one stands for what is right, even when no one is watching." Some of the warriors lowered their heads. Understanding her meaning, Leora turned to Rin. "You are human, from a world many here see as young and untested. Yet, you fought not to show pride, but to protect others. Even when the battle was not yours, you stood for justice. That is why," she took a deep breath, "that is why I choose you." A wave of murmurs filled the hall. Some nobles looked displeased, but others nodded in respect. The alien champion stepped back, some offering Rin a small bow of acknowledgement. The king raised his hand. "It is decided. By the choice of my daughter, the human warrior Rin will stand by her side." The hall erupted with applause. That night, a great celebration began. Tables were filled with food from across the stars. Music from alien instruments echoed through the palace. Rin walked beside Leora, still unsure how to act in the middle of so much attention. "You seem quiet," she said with a small smile. "I've fought in many battles," Rin replied, "but I've never been celebrated." "You earned it," Leora said, "not just for winning the tournament, but for showing a better way." As the night went on, an old ambassador from a distant planet approached Rin. "Human," he said slowly, "you have changed the way many here see your kind. Until now, your people were thought of as weak. Tonight, that changes." Rin simply nodded. He had not fought for glory. He had fought because it was right. Days later, Rin stood on the palace balcony, watching the twin suns rise. Leora joined him. "I know this was not your dream," she said. "You did not come here for a crown." "No," Rin admitted. "I came because I could not turn away when I heard what was happening. But I am glad I stayed." She looked at him, her expression warm. "Then stay still. Not as a ruler over others, but as my partner in building peace." Rin thought about the wars he had seen, the worlds torn apart by greed. "If you want peace," he said, "then I will stand with you." In the weeks that followed, Rin and Leora worked together. They traveled to the worlds of former rivals, speaking of unity instead of division. At first, many were doubtful, but over time, respect for the human warrior grew. The memory of the tournament lived on, not as a story of battles, but as the beginning of a new era, one where a human's courage helped bridge worlds. And though challenges would come again, Rin knew one truth: humanity's place among the stars had been claimed not through power alone, but through the strength of the heart.